Hello, everyone. My name is Peyman Heidari, and I'm here to present our work called Getting to Production with Few-Shot Natural Language Generation Models. Our team is out of Facebook, and I represent a large group of authors that I want to thank here for great collaboration on this work. So first of all, let's talk about the motivation of our work. So we want to build natural language generation models for task-oriented dialogue systems that are semantically correct, accurate, so no hallucination, coherent and natural, so better than some rigid template system, low latency to meet some production limits, and most importantly, they are highly data efficient. So you just use a few hundreds of samples for a pretty complex domain. So why do we want to be data efficient? Obviously, we want to scale to new domains and languages fast. We want to remove the need for third-party crowdsourced data collections. And we want to have higher data quality through annotations by expert linguists instead. And then that means that our models are going to be easy to maintain and debug. You can add some examples and get things going easily or find errors faster. So what is our task? So we have a query, an upstream system like detects what's the intent and gets some data, and we get some structured meaning representation that contains dialogue acts and discourse relations to convey some information. So our task is to go from this query and a structured MR to a reference text, which is the natural language data, like the natural language response that we are going to serve to the users. So we have 4 data sets in this study. We use reminder, time, and alarm, which are simpler domains for joint training of our models to teach the task better. And our main focus is on going to be on the most complex domain that we have, the weather data set. So I'm going to go over numbers later, and we have 2 types of metrics. So human labeled ones and automatic ones. For the human labeled ones, we have correctness, which is like checking semantic correctness and hallucination and aggregations and stuff like that. And grammaticality, right? Regardless of the input, is a sentence grammatical or not. Also have like an automatic system metric called reconstruction accuracy, which is using BART to go from the natural language back to the data, so to the structured MR. And then we change round trip consistency. And if we could regenerate exactly what was used to generate the text, then we believe that, okay, no hallucination happens, so we are okay. So the gist of our work is that we are using BART with several tricks to generate data. And then we use that data to train a smaller models that can meet some production limit and use caching and knowledge, so new knowledge is caching to meet that production limit. So, so the main idea was to use BART, but the main hypothesis is that if we transform this highly structured data into some subnatural text, we can get more performance out of BART. We can have higher data efficiency. And this has been done before, but we believe our system is simpler, and I'm going to talk about why that is in the next slide. So another idea is that, okay, so previous research shows that, okay, when you use pre-trained models, don't deluxibilize. So we want to check that and see, okay, does that still hold with in a few-shot setting? So we will go over delexicalization. So why do I say this textualization system is simpler than what we had before, what has been in the community before? The reason is that we use a set of functions that are, most of them are predefined for like different slots. And what happens is that we have this data and we go from the leaf nodes up to the root. and we try to textualize these slot key values as we get to them. So you could have, like, you have default functions that you could use for any kind of slot. You have functions that just like mention the, like remove some underscore and mention the slot name and a slot value. You have ones like the one that has been used here for the condition, just say the slot value, sun or rain, it's enough. And these are like decisions that are linguistically you could make. One could make. And actually, you do not have to be a linguist to know, okay, if I say only the value, it's enough or not, right? Or for like very complex systems, for very complex slots, you could write custom functions. So the beauty of this is that you can scale with the number of linearly with the number of slots, and you could reuse these for other domains. So a new domain comes on, you have only 2 new slot types. You maybe write one function for use a default or some predefined function for another one, and there you go. So going over these different steps, you get to the resulting textualized input at the bottom, which is subnatural, but human beings can understand it and know what you want to say. And we believe that means that Bart will understand it better than the structured text. So we have some annotated data in domain. We have some data from other domains, which are very different, and they're not similar domains. And we have some non-annotated data in the target domain that we have. So we use self-training to add more data to a training pool. And we do this multiple cycles. And then we use that data to do knowledge distillation to a smaller model. And I'm going to go over these steps later. So during self-training, we use all of our data that we have at each step, and we train a generation and reconstruction model. So generation goes from data to text, and reconstruction goes from text to data. And then we change round trip consistency. So if you exactly got back what you fed the model, we believe that, okay, Bart did a good job. So we add that to the pool for the next self-training cycle, or at the end of it for knowledge distillation. So a big challenge here is that, okay, we have Bart, let's put it in production. The issue is latency. So to combat latency problems, we experimented with doing sequence level knowledge distillation from Bart large to a smaller box and even LSTM models, and also do caching. So we believe like something in the range of 100 millisecond median latency is reasonable for a production system. However, even Bart small models have higher latency than that. So why not use caching? And this caching can be done in a way that doesn't affect the naturalness gains that we have, and we will talk about that later. However, doesn't matter how good you are, you cannot make a mistake. So you need to have an acceptability classifier or some system. So in previous work, like other teams, actually our team in previous work, we have proposed using templates as a fallback mechanism. So you make like model response generation, you check it. If it's wrong, fall back on templates. However, the previous method for doing that is using tree accuracy, which needs the tree-based structure that we are proposing to remove now. So we needed something instead. So we used model-based acceptability checking using like very fast models, and we went over the literature and found different methods to do that, and we tried that. So when I say model-based acceptability classifiers, it's a binary classifier, acceptable or not. Here in a few-shot setting, we could use all of our data that we got from self-training positively as acceptable ones, right? So the main challenge is how would you get unacceptable ones? And for that, we used a proposed system to use mask filling for BART. And then we mask some tokens and have BART generate, and normally it hallucinates and generates something that wasn't in the previous data, and use that as negative, and we have the both positive and negative now to generate to train the classifier. So what were our results? So main thing was that we wanted to check textualization and delexicalization. As you can see here, our highest performance model, especially in the case of few shots, was when we have delexicalized textualized input and delexed text output. And actually, we got pretty good results, and these are from human evaluations. Interestingly, in the full data regime, actually lexicalized structure was better, which is in line with what has been seen in the community. So it seems that in a few shot setting, delexing helps and textualizing helps. So that's the main thing that we found out. So what levels of data efficiency could we achieve? So in this plot, you can see that we didn't reach the full data performance, but even with 250 samples, we reached 75% accuracy. And this is like on a test set that we call the challenging test set. And when we added acceptability classifiers on top of it, that pushed it up to 88%. So now we have another test set, which is like closer to what you would expect from a production traffic, more simpler MRs. And in that case, even with 250, we got 97.8% accuracy. And when we added the acceptability classifiers, it was 98.8, which is acceptable for a production system. So we are going to do self-training. So the question is that how many self-training cycles? So we ran these experiments, and what you see here is the reconstruction accuracy. So this is not human eval anymore. And we saw that even with one cycle, you get a huge bump. So it's from 53, 54 to 73, 70. So it's like 20%, right? And actually, it keeps increasing. But after 2 or 3 cycles, maybe it's enough. So we recommend people to do 2 to 3 self-training cycles. We also ran experiments without joint training, without self-training, to find the floor. And the floor of performance was at 42%. So you see that with joint training, textualization, self-training, we could get from 42 to close to 73 with only one cycle, or close to 75 with 2, with only 250 samples. Okay, so when we say caching, this like performance of this caching depends a lot on the hit rate, and hit rate depends on domain complexity. Are you adding the user query into your input or not? And are you doing the lexicalization or not? So we are adding the user query and we are delexicalizing. So 2 things that we are doing here. We found that we should be doing here. And we found out that we could expect a hit rate of 60% under this circumstances. And that decreases the BART small latency to around 50 milliseconds, which is a 64% improvement. We actually believe that we can improve upon this if we even delexicalize the user query. So if you delexicalize on a slot in the MR, just look at the user query. If it's there, remove it, delex it, you probably get better hit rates. So what are the conclusions from our work? So most important thing is that we can stand up a domain with a few hundred annotations. Using templating, using pre-trained language models, self-training, and acceptability classifiers. And we can get to production latencies with knowledge distillation and caching. More importantly, there is no need anymore for crowdsourced data collection. So what that means is that you can have expert linguists annotate, and model maintenance improves a lot more. So you can add more domains faster, and you can have happier annotators. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the talk.